the ruling class bloodlines and the 21 seats. Introduction. This is the 19th of 19 videos that tells the story of the ruling class bloodlines, the 21 seats, and the two possible timelines that lie ahead of us. One of these timelines will erase the other, based on the decisions that humanity makes over the next 2 generations. Part 19. What specific actions, if taken in the first generation from now, will maximize the chance of the smooth transition before we even reach the tipping window? First generation actions to maximize the chance of a smooth transition before the tipping window. 1. Establish localized resource sovereignty within 20 years. Action. Prioritize building community-owned food, water, and energy systems now, while the loyalist grip is weakened but not yet in survival mode. Why now? Once crises intensify, creating these systems under pressure will be far more difficult and subject to infiltration. Methods. Form cooperatives for renewable energy microgrids. Create regional seed banks and decentralized water purification networks. Protect local farmland from corporate or state buyouts. 2. Reframe ancient symbols in mainstream culture. Action. Begin public reinterpretation of Mardukian-era symbols in art, media, and education. Why now? The loyalists still draw subtle power from these symbols because the public is unaware of their origins or meanings. Methods. Use these symbols in positive, liberated contexts, films, festivals, community projects. Encourage grassroots artists to reclaim the imagery with new narratives. 3. Decentralize communication infrastructure. Action. Build secure, peer-to-peer communication networks that can survive central internet restrictions. Why now? In the tipping window, loyalist factions may attempt digital choke points. Networks must already be operational to bypass them. Methods. Mesh networking in urban areas, satellite-independent long-range radio and encrypted local cloud systems. 4. Awakened bloodline alliance consolidation. Action. Bring awakened descendants into quiet mutual awareness and cooperation within the next decade. Why now? Many operate in isolation. Mutual support multiplies their effect and protects them from retaliation. Methods. Discrete retreats or gatherings under neutral cultural or environmental themes. Secure back-channel communication for coordination. 5. Youth immersion in sovereignty principles. Action. Launch intergenerational education projects to normalize sovereignty and decentralization in children and teenagers. Why now? By the tipping window, these youth will be adults ready to lead and will not default to hierarchical dependency. Methods. Community apprenticeships in local governance and resource management. Creative media designed for youth that subtly models post-Mardukian society. 6. Cultural cross-pollination projects. Action. Foster international grassroots exchanges that bypass official diplomacy. Why now? The more direct people-to-people trust exists, the harder it is for loyalists to re-establish divide-and-rule narratives. Methods. Cooperative art, science, and ecological restoration projects involving multiple cultures. Traveling festivals that carry a unifying message without overt political framing. 7. Covert strategic occupation of loyalist choke points. Action. Place awakened allies inside key positions in media, education, and infrastructure management. Why now? Control over narrative and logistics is critical when the shift accelerates. These positions must be secured before loyalists realize they are losing grip. Methods. Encourage capable individuals to pursue these posts with the intent of later redirecting them toward liberation goals. If these actions are undertaken in the first generation from now, before the tipping window, the chance of a smooth transition rises sharply, potentially making the second-generation struggle unnecessary. How the loyalist factions are already preparing to counter these exact moves, and the subtle traps they will lay for awakened networks in the next 20 years. Loyalist preparations and subtle traps in the next 20 years. 1. Narrative pre-capture. Strategy: seed decentralization and sovereignty language into loyalist-run initiatives, so the public associates these words with controlled programs. Trap: movement leaders are invited to join high-visibility coalitions that appear aligned but redirect outcomes to centralized custodians. Tell: beautiful branding, fast funding, vague governance. Critical decisions remain in advisory boards you cannot see. 2. Synthetic grassroots. Strategy: manufacture community projects that mimic bottom-up efforts while data harvesting participants and steering agendas. Trap: sign-up platforms that require biometric or continuous geolocation to unlock community rewards. Tell: uniform toolkits across regions, identical talking points, heavy emphasis on metrics over relationships. 3. Token scarcity and controlled crypto. Strategy: launch asset tokens pegged to loyalty networks, marketed as freedom tech. Trap: smart contract backdoors allowing issuance freezes, wallet blacklisting, or emergency governance overrides. Tell: centralized Oracle dependencies, governance tokens concentrated in foundations or guardians. 4. Ritual date inversions. Strategy: flood solstice, equinox windows with mass entertainment, and unity ceremonies that covertly reinforce old sigils. Trap: symbols rotated or stylized yet geometrically unchanged, reactivating legacy bindings. Tell: consistent star angle ratios in staging, repeated color triads, scripted vow anthem moments. 5. Philanthropic netting. Strategy: offer generous grants to decentralization projects with clauses that fix IP, data, and standards under donor control. Trap: interoperability frameworks that become mandatory choke points later. Tell: non-negotiable compliance audits, step-down clauses that trigger asset transfer upon mission drift. 6. Education gatekeeping. Strategy: introduce sovereignty curricula that teach language without praxis. Trap: certifications required for community leadership, filtering out independent organizers. Tell: emphasis on assessments, brand alignment, and leadership pipelines tied to corporate partners. 7. Mesh network containment. Strategy: subsidize mesh hardware that defaults to centralized discovery services. Trap: kill switch updates and telemetry baked into firmware. Tell: mandatory cloud accounts for local routing, EULAs forbidding community-side firmware. 8. Controlled defections. Strategy: publicize staged defections from prominent bloodline members who then steer reform into harmless channels. Trap: confession narratives that never reveal mechanisms, only personalities. Tell: rapid media rehabilitation and curated documentaries with no primary records released. 9. Legal harmonization traps. Strategy: fast-track safety and resilience laws harmonized across regions. Trap: definitions of critical infrastructure expanded to include co-ops, enabling regulatory takeover during events. Tell: emergency powers without sunset, appeals routed to supranational panels. 10. Cultural saturation and fatigue. Strategy: overwhelm with constant micro-controversies to dissipate attention. Trap: movements spend cycles on reputation defense instead of institution building. Tell: sudden synchronized smear bursts across platforms with identical phrasing. 11. Energetic interference windows. Strategy: Target key organizers with sleep disruption and emotional amplification during known personal cycle lows. Trap. Orchestrated conflicts inside teams near project milestones. Tell. Repeating timing patterns every 28 to 33 days. Spikes around travel or venue bookings. 12. Open standards that close later. Strategy. Promote open standards with latent clauses, enabling governance capture at scale. Trap. Royalty-free now, fee-based or license-restricted once adoption crosses a threshold. Tell. Ambiguous patent pools. Steering committees dominated by legacy vendors. 13. Land and water consolidation by proxy. Strategy. Acquire key parcels via shell trusts, labeled ecological or educational. Trap. Access easements later converted into exclusive rights of way controlling local production. Tell. Repeated council and trustee names across multiple, unrelated purchases. 14. Symbolic co-option of reclamation. Strategy. Commission art on festivals that echo liberation aesthetics while reinstating apex motifs in layout. Trap. Audiences rehearse the old geometry with their bodies, procession routes, seating maps. Tell. Mandated drone shots revealing perfect radii, spokes and tridents centered on dais points. 15. Talent. Honey traps. Strategy. Offer fellowships and residencies to rising decentralization architects. Trap. NDAs binding future inventions and non-competes blocking community deployments. Tell. Broad IP definitions. Any idea conceived while affiliated. 16. Crisis drills to normalize central override. Strategy. Frequent simulations conditioning acceptance of command hierarchies. Trap. Community leaders become auxiliary officers during drills, rehearsing dependency pathways. Tell. Exercise scripts forbidding local improvisation. After action reports never published. 17. Lineage re-knitting. Strategy. Quietly arrange marriages, alliances to re-amplify diluted genealogical resonance. Trap. Philanthropic or artistic partnerships, masking heritage consolidation. Tell. Sudden cross-foundation mergers, heritage galas with revived heraldry. 18. Archivist displacement. Strategy. Offer prestigious roles to independent record keepers, relocating them from community to institution. Trap. Access contingent on compliance, archives siloed and later reorganized. Tell. New catalog numbers without public concordance tables. 19. Standards of responsible autonomy. Strategy. Define acceptable decentralization via certification bodies they sponsor. Trap. Non-certified projects denied insurance, payments or venue access. Tell. Insurance questionnaires mirroring certification rubrics. 20. Soft prohibition via procurement. Strategy. Large buyers adopt policies that exclude truly independent systems. Trap. Markets appear free while demand is locked by procurement playbooks. Tell. Identical RFP language across institutions with vendor pre-clear lists. Windows of heightened trap deployment. Year clusters around 7 to 9, 13 to 15, and 19 to 20 from now, synchronized with major celestial, geopolitical cycles and budget appropriations. Primary defense of the awakened. Quiet redundancy, open ledgers for governance, community-owned legal defense pools, symbol geometry audits for public events, and pre-committed IP/standard covenants that cannot be rescinded by funders. End of Part 19.